There she blows, Captain. All apart. Here's all the little bits. Hope we gave you a pretty good look at the parts. So I'm guessing, I don't know how easy that is to see, but I'm guessing that is the serial number there. The only other evidence I could find, and there's no other serial number anywhere, is just this date. So July 22nd, 1972. Pretty neat stuff. Oh, and this, which I have no idea what that means. Maybe that's the name of the person who assembled it? Their stamp or something? Who knows? Really cool though. Not often you get to see one of these apart. So somebody's clearly been in here at some point. They shielded everything, but they didn't shield the output jack. Silly. Silly. So anyway, I can't see anything else here. That was the only other place I was expecting to find something. But it's clear somebody's been in here and rubbing off lacquer or something. I have a strong suspicion this guitar used to be black. Just from the paint that's been left on the guitar, it was either sunburst or black. I can't imagine it was sunburst with this body. I think it was just either black or brown or something like that. But I have a strong suspicion it was black. And then whoever rubbed it back didn't do a really good job. So, I'm going to go ahead and sand this body down here with 220 and get rid of all this nasty lacquer and old paint. And I've got some special paint on the way for it. So let's get cleaning up this body. Alright, as you can see here, most of the body is sanded. There's still a bit of stubborn lacquer right here, but most of it's sanded. And I didn't film any of that because it's really dusty and I do it in the garage. And you probably noticed what looks like a bit of white paint on it. It's not actually white paint. Some people call it guide coat. It's really just to fill the little dings and dents. So what I've been up to this morning, I thought I'd turn the camera on, is just feathering out these edges a bit, just so that there's no harsh lines. And so I'm just going around the whole body and just smoothing everything out with a bit of 220. So I'm not going to worry about this too much, about getting that down to the bare wood, because we are going to put a primer coat all over this, and then we're going to spray the top coat and then a clear coat. So for the time being, I'm just going to go at this and clean up these edges a bit. And since watching sanding is pretty boring, I'll probably turn the camera off and bring you back when it's all cleaned up and ready for its primer coat. Alright, I realize that I might not have explained that very well, but just to give you an idea of what I'm doing here, you can see all these little, where it looks like there's paint left. Those are little dents and dings in the guitar and scratches and stuff like that, and I'm just pulling all that away, so that all that I'm left with is just a little bit of this primer. I think it's epoxy primer. Come on, focus. Left in just the little dents. It's basically, I don't know, it's kind of like grain filling, except way easier. And this will be perfect. So, then we'll prime over this once this is nice, all nice and flat and smooth. And it should look great. But what I want to do, I don't know if you can see that there in the light, is take away these little harsh lines. Because whoever sanded this before did a pretty a pretty poo job of sanding it. So I want to take away these little harsh lines. So I'm just going to go around and feather that all out so that we get a nice clean finish. And you don't see any really weird lines where there shouldn't be in the body lines. So we'll just feather all that out, take our time, and you can see this is mostly done. So there's almost none of that stuff left. It's just only stays in their little pockets. It's really even hard to see where it's left. So if the pockets aren't deep, you know, not a lot stays behind, but it's perfect because it fills all those little dents and dings and stuff like that. But this back is almost nearly completely done. So just working my way around the sides now. And one other thing that I do, I don't know if anybody does this, but this is left over from my woodworking days, is that if you take something like this, which is really flat and straight, you can pull away most of this stuff really quickly and then come back along with your sandpaper. It's a little bit hard to do with one hand, but you can see there that it scrapes away just a little bit and just scrape evenly. Now this is not something I would recommend to do if you're not comfortable doing this, but it's kind of like using a scraper. If you've ever used a scraper on wood to try and clean it up, it's kind of the same thing. So just really gentle, you're not taking away a lot, and you can feel where the paint is when you slide this across. So just keep your blade clean. Use a nice, good quality blade that's really sharp. Use a brand new one every time. And it works quite well. And then again, like I said, you just come along with your sandpaper, some 220 or 300 or whatever, and clean that up, and off you go. And you can see it just makes little shavings. And it gets rid of all, just makes that nice and flat and smooth. And you don't get lines if you do this properly. You can't sit in one place for too long trying to gouge, because you'll gouge the wood. So you got to be real careful when you do this. Just take nice, even passes all the way across, and then run your fingers across it, and you'll feel if there are any ridges. And if you're doing it right, there won't be. And like I said, you clean up any little tiny bumps with some sandpaper, but if you're doing this right, it should almost come out feeling glossy smooth. Anyway, give it a try on a scratch piece of wood. It's a neat little trick I learned a long time ago. So believe it or not, your fingertips are actually really sensitive. And what I find I do is I just run my fingertips over every little surface. And you can feel all the bad spots. And this is starting to come really clean. All that nasty stuff is done. This is nice and smooth. There's no hard edges. There's no wobbles. This is a semi-rigid sanding pad, which is nice to get around corners, but it still tracks nice and straight. So when you're doing like your belly cut and stuff like that, you don't get those wavy patterns. Like I've seen dudes paint their stuff on YouTube, and they end up with those wavy lines in the finish, which is a shame because most of a good finish, as I've learned painfully over the last year of trying to teach myself to do this properly, is prep. Prep. Make sure you have as good a surface you can start with as possible. Nice and straight, nice and smooth. So I'm going to probably sand this down to about 400 grit. And then we're going to put a primer coat on it, and then we're going to sand that flat, and then hopefully we'll put a top coat on there.